Organizational learning and knowledge management is a continuous change intervention combining two interrelated concepts. Continuous change interventions are useful to have in your toolbox, particularly if you are helping an organization whose environment requires them to adapt quickly due to technological advancements, changing customer needs, or shifting federal or state regulations. This category of intervention is best suited for use with large groups and entire organizations. According to Cummings and Worley, when used effectively, organizational learning can be a source of strategic renewal and competitive advantage. The gentleman pictured on the left, Chris Argyris, is a prominent scholar in organizational learning. He identified two types of learning loops, single and double. His books on organizational development and learning have become classics in the field. And on the right, Peter Senge is another influential figure in organizational learning and the author of the best-selling book, The Fifth Discipline, The Art and Practice of the Learning Organization. He defines learning organizations as a group of people working together to collectively enhance their capabilities to create results that they truly care about. Later, I'll present a case study that demonstrates how combining Argyris' single and double learning loops with Senge 5 disciplines can foster a culture of continuous learning and knowledge sharing. Looking at this diagram, starting in the center purple box, strategies and techniques. It's what we do and then we get results. Single learning loops happen when you detect and correct an error. It is basic problem solving and maintenance learning, or said differently, just getting better at what you already know how to do. It's about individuals and organizations fixing errors and inefficiencies without questioning the underlying assumptions or strategies. Single loop learning is inadequate for organizational culture changes as it is best used for incremental improvements. Double loop learning, on the other hand, is basically asking, are we doing the right thing? This deeper form of learning is where individuals or organizations question the underlying assumptions and strategies that led to the errors. It's about changing the fundamental ways things are done in order to improve performance. Looking at the diagram, you can see the back arrow pointing to the blue box, assumptions. It's asking why we do what we do. In this scenario, it's necessary to give yourself permission to stumble in the process of learning and ask the question why and re-examine your underlying values. This is how Argyris challenged academics and executives to lay aside defensiveness, engage in honest inquiry, and seek actionable knowledge. This is also how Argyris connected his research to the way the human brain works. Interestingly, when researched, the single and double loop theory in practice was the same all over the world, regardless of culture, gender, race, age, etc. The results don't vary. With global competitiveness, companies must be adaptive, able to turn around problems and be more flexible. Single loop learning becomes an entrenched routine, but it is double loop learning that promotes adaptability and flexibility. Now I'd like to bring your attention to the diagram on the right. Peter Senge's 5 disciplines. He emphasized a learning organization is one that is constantly acquiring and sharing knowledge in order to improve its performance. Senge identified 5 key disciplines that are essential for creating a learning organization. Starting at the bottom in orange, building a shared vision creates a sense of purpose and direction for the organization. At the top in blue, personal mastery is the ability to continually learn and improve. On the right, mental models are our deep-seated assumptions and beliefs that shape how we see the world. On the left, team learning is the ability to work together effectively as a team through dialogue and discussion. And finally, systems thinking fuses all these together and is the ability to see the whole system and how the different parts interact. When working with this idea, it is imperative to have the support of senior leaders in the organization. There are leaders that will promote learning and those who tend to prevent it. Senge defines leaders as people who help bring new realities into being. You may find the OLKM tool useful if you're working with organizations that need to adapt quickly in response to circumstances such as mergers and acquisitions, taking the company in a new strategic direction, or if the organization faces constant disruptions due to changes in technology or evolving customer needs. Another circumstance may be if your client needs to address performance issues due to stagnant growth, employee turnover, or, very relevant to this model, if employees are operating in silos and are not sharing their knowledge with other individuals or departments. The OLKM model may also be effective if your client needs to focus on innovation in order to stay ahead of the competition, solve complex problems through cross-functional collaboration, or if the leadership encourages experimentation and views mistakes as opportunities to learn as opposed to failures. As we learned in Shine's article, How Leaders Embed and Transmit Culture, only if the leader can see how the OLKM framework will fit into the larger organizational culture will it be embraced and trickle down throughout the rest of the organization. Now I'll demonstrate how this tool can be used to influence organizational culture and strategy through a case study. The analysis. Widget Corp, a traditional widget manufacturer, was struggling to keep pace with the changing market. Competitors offered innovative designs and faster production times. Widgets' hierarchical structure stifled information sharing, and a focus on individual performance hindered their ability to adapt. On the right, you'll see the decline and the diagnosis. Sales were declining, and the employee morale was low. The new CEO recognized the need for change, and consultants familiar with the OLKM framework and principles were hired to assist. The consultants introduced the concepts of single-loop learning, and when they did, Widget could see they had routinely approached problems with a single-loop method. For example, recently, they identified their production efficiency as an area for improvement. When implemented, they got results, but they were short-term gains, and these changes didn't address the core problems, the lack of knowledge sharing, and outdated solutions. Then the consultants introduced the concept of double-loop learning, which could produce long-term improvements. First, they helped Widget unearth their mental models. The consultants facilitated workshops to uncover employees' underlying assumptions. In fact, many believed innovation came from top-down directives, and information sharing could threaten their job security. Second, they helped Widget challenge their assumptions. The workshops fostered open dialogue, and leaders acknowledged the limitations of traditional methods and encouraged employees to share ideas. Next, the consultants used SENG's 5 disciplines to continue the transformation. Starting with a shared vision, a collective visioning process established a shared goal of becoming a leader in innovative widget design. Personal mastery was realized through training programs that empowered employees to develop problem-solving skills and critical thinking. Next, mental models created safe spaces and allowed leaders to openly discuss their own assumptions and encourage employees to challenge the status quo. Then, team learning activities broke down the silos and fostered collaboration. Employees from different departments learned from each other's expertise. And finally, systems thinking, cross-functional teams were created, encouraging employees to see the bigger picture and identify interdependencies. Finally, the transformation. Combining Argyris and SENG concepts resulted in positive outcomes for Widget Corp. A culture of open communication and continuous learning emerged. Employees felt empowered to experiment and share ideas. New designs were developed more quickly with better quality and features. Employee morale and productivity increased as their contributions were valued. Widget Corporation transformed from a struggling company to a leader in the widget industry. By embracing organizational learning and knowledge management, they created a dynamic and adaptable organization prepared for future challenges. This case study demonstrates how combining Argyris ideas on learning loops with SENG's 5 disciplines can foster a culture of continuous learning and knowledge sharing, which leads to increased innovation, improved performance, and a more engaged workforce. Just as with other OD models, the OLKM model does have strengths and limitations. The focus on continuous improvement allows organizations to remain competitive and stay ahead of the curve if they operate in a dynamic environment. Argyris' concept of double loop learning encourages critical reflection, which leads to problem solving at the root cause. SENG's concept of a learning organization fosters collaboration, reduces duplication of effort, and leverages the collective expertise of the entire organization. And lastly, SENG's emphasis on personal mastery empowers individual growth, which can lead to increased engagement and motivation. According to SENG, it would be unfair to sugarcoat the OLKM intervention. Some of the barriers to creating the learning organization include: the OLKM requires a significant investment in time and human resources, which may mean it is just unrealistic for some organizations to implement. Double loop learning assumes employees and teams are capable of overcoming defensiveness and open to questioning their own bias and assumptions. Next, the potential for fragmentation of problem solving means it's necessary for us as consultants to pay very close attention to how errors are identified and fixed. Competition within the organization, whether between individual or teams, can also be a problem. And last, it can be difficult to measure the impact organizational learning can have on innovation and performance. Senge also says that it is essential to find committed champions for any type of organizational transformation. This change process requires an unusual degree of commitment because it insists that large numbers of people change the way they think and act. As Block points out in Flawless Consulting, our natural resistance to change is powerful and can feel threatening. As I learned more about this model, I was reminded it's critical for us as consultants to be prepared, well-versed, and adept at dealing with resistance in the way Block recommends in chapters 10 and 11 in his book. Argyris and Senge's most recognized books are listed here, as well as a few references to double loop and organizational learning from our program texts. I found practical ways to create psychological safety and reduce learning anxiety in Edgar Schein's article, The Role of Leadership in the Management of Organizational Transformation and Learning, highlighted here in green. Also, you can find more case studies describing how the OLKM model can be used by searching on Google's Gemini with the keywords listed or by using the URL included here. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to any and all of your feedback. And please feel free to reach out to me with any questions you have.